You finally stop crying yourself to sleep, but the silence in your phone still feels like a trap. You've started to breathe again, to reclaim little pieces of your life, yet a part of you keeps looking over your shoulder. You know he's watching, not with kindness, but with an energy that feels like a storm gathering just beyond the horizon. Does it ever feel like the moment you begin to stand on your own feet, he senses it? Like he can smell your healing the way smoke carries a scent, and suddenly, out of nowhere, he reappears with a text, a memory, a message that pulls at your heart. Have you ever wondered why his charm, his attention, his apologies arrive exactly when you're starting to feel strong again? This isn't your imagination. It's a pattern, a cycle designed to keep you orbiting him, to keep your hope alive just enough so you don't fully leave. And when you start healing, when your glow begins to return, a narcissist feels it like a threat, because your freedom means the supply he feeds on, your attention, your care, your pain might slip away. In this moment, as you rebuild yourself, his moves may shift. He might become softer, like the man you first met, or sharper, like a blade looking for a weak spot. This isn't love, this is control, learning a new tactic. So before you doubt yourself, pause and ask, what if his sudden kindness or anger isn't about me at all, but about losing the power he once held? What if my healing is not the trigger of his behavior, but the evidence that I'm finally stepping out of his game? Because you are, and that's where your true freedom begins. When you start to heal after leaving a narcissist, something shifts inside you. Your eyes open, your nervous system starts to calm. You begin to remember what it feels like to think your own thoughts and breathe your own air. For the first time in a long time, you're not revolving around someone else's moods or approval. That glow people comment on isn't just skin deep. It's the first light of freedom flickering back on in your body. A narcissist senses this shift. Not because he's mystical, but because his entire sense of control depends on your attention. For months or years, you've been the mirror that reflected him back to himself. When you stop reflecting, when your energy turns inward, the supply he once took for granted begins to dry up. And that's when he acts. Sometimes it's a sudden flood of affection and promises. Sometimes it's criticism or guilt-tripping. Sometimes it's a quiet, strategic disappearance meant to make you chase him. The tactic can change, but the goal is the same: to pull you back into orbit before you drift too far. This happens most often to women who have been conditioned to overgive. If you grew up believing love meant caretaking, fixing, or proving yourself, you became an easy target. Your empathy, your patience, your desire to be fair, these are beautiful qualities, but in the hands of a narcissist, they become levers. He learns your patterns. He knows that when you see someone hurting, you reach out. When you feel blamed, you explain. When you feel unseen, you try harder. And so just as you start to reclaim yourself, he presses those old buttons to make you doubt the progress you've made. Understanding this isn't about blaming yourself. It's about recognizing the pattern. The feelings of confusion, guilt, or longing that show up when he reappears are not signs you're weak or going backwards. They're the echo of a bond built on intermittent reinforcement, a cycle of love bombing and withdrawal that trained your nervous system to equate chaos with connection. When you heal, that bond starts to loosen, but your body still remembers the rhythm. That's why his messages or gestures can feel so powerful even when your mind knows better. The deeper truth is this: your healing is not causing his behavior, it's exposing it. You're not doing something wrong, you're doing something right. The discomfort you feel isn't a warning to go back. It's a sign you're stepping out of the trance. Each time you notice the pattern, each time you choose not to respond from guilt or fear, you're strengthening a new pathway inside you, one that leads back to yourself. This is the quiet work of freedom. It's slow, it's messy, but it's real. And every step you take is a declaration that your life, your love, and your worth belong to you again. When a narcissist senses you healing, what you're really seeing isn't magic, it's psychology. For a long time, you've been his mirror, his fuel, his audience. He learned how to draw out your empathy, how to use your caretaking instincts, how to make your sense of worth depend on his approval. This didn't start with him, it started much earlier in your life. Many women who end up in these relationships were taught, often without words, that love had conditions. Maybe you were praised for being helpful, quiet, or mature, but ignored when you had needs. Maybe you learned to anticipate moods, to smooth tension, to prove your value. Over time, your nervous system began to associate safety with self-erasure. By the time you met him, this pattern was already alive in you. You didn't choose to be manipulated, you were trained to put yourself last. A narcissist doesn't just charm you with words, he unconsciously senses this open door. He recognizes, often without realizing it, that you'll bend, explain, forgive, try harder. That's how a trauma bond begins. Not because you're weak, but because your deepest instinct is to care, to repair, to hope. Inside that bond, your brain and body get caught in a cycle of intermittent reward. He gives you affection, praise, or attention, just enough to hook you, then withdraws it to keep you chasing. Your nervous system, already primed to please, lights up like an alarm. You work harder to get back the warmth you felt at the start. Slowly, without noticing, you lose track of where you end and he begins. His moods set your weather. His needs become your compass. His approval becomes the measure of your worth. That's why healing feels both liberating and frightening. When you start reclaiming yourself, your nervous system is breaking an old contract. If I keep him happy, I'll be safe. It no longer fits. And a narcissist senses this loss of control. He may suddenly act affectionate, apologetic, or threatening, anything to pull you back into the familiar pattern. Understanding this isn't about blaming yourself. It's about seeing how your beautiful qualities, empathy, loyalty, resilience, were exploited inside an unhealthy dynamic. The emptiness, guilt, or longing you feel when you step away are not signs you're broken. They're the echoes of an old survival strategy your body learned long ago. The deeper truth is that this pattern can be unlearned. As you practice boundaries, self-care, and honest self-reflection, your nervous system begins to trust that you are safe, even when you stop rescuing others. Little by little, you stop losing yourself. You stop being a mirror and start being a person again, whole, visible, and free. There comes a quiet morning when the weight in your chest feels heavier than the silence of his absence. A moment when you realize the tears you keep swallowing are not proof of weakness, but proof of how hard you've been trying. A moment when something small inside whispers, I can't live like this anymore. That whisper is not failure. It's the first pulse of your freedom. It's your own voice rising through the noise. You do not have to keep living this way. You do not have to keep bending until you break. You do not have to make yourself smaller so someone else can feel big. Look at the woman in the mirror. She has survived storms she never deserved. She is still standing, still breathing, still capable of change. If she can survive all of that, she can learn to live differently. The truth is both simple and radical. You are not responsible for saving him. You are not responsible for healing his emptiness. You are only responsible for returning to yourself. This is hope entering your pain, not as a flash of light, but as a steady, gentle warmth. It's the moment you stop reaching outward for permission and start reaching inward for belonging. It's the moment you begin to see boundaries not as walls, but as bridges back to your own life. You start small. One deep breath before answering his message. One pause before apologizing for something that isn't your fault. One act of kindness directed at yourself instead of at his chaos. Each small choice is a statement. I am worthy. I am allowed to stop. My life belongs to me. And slowly the fog begins to lift. His power begins to fade. Your heartbeat grows louder than his voice in your head. You don't stop caring. You start caring with yourself included. You don't stop loving. You start loving from a place that is whole, not from a place that is hungry. This is your turning point. Not a single dramatic goodbye, but a series of quiet yeses to yourself. Yes to rest. Yes to boundaries. Yes to freedom. Read this slowly. I do not have to disappear to be loved. I can be soft and still be strong. I am allowed to be safe even if it means stepping away. Let these words settle into your body. Let them guide your next breath. This is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a life where you are no longer a mirror, but a whole person, seen, cherished, and free. When you first clicked on this video, when a narcissist sees you healing, here's what he does next. You were probably looking for answers about him. You wanted to understand why the moment you start to rise, he shows up again with charm, apologies, or pressure. You wanted to decode his behaviors so you could protect yourself. And you've just walked through that explanation. How his sense of control depends on your attention, how your old survival patterns made you vulnerable, how his tactics shift when your freedom threatens the supply he takes from you. But the deeper truth hidden inside this title was never really about him. It's about you. It's about the woman who has spent years bending and giving, hoping for love, believing that if she could just heal enough or try hard enough, she would finally be safe. It's about the moment she begins to see that the cycle isn't her fault and it isn't her fate. Now here you are, at the end of this journey, sitting with a softer, clearer truth. You are not powerless. You are not broken. You are awakening. Every boundary you set, every pause before replying, every gentle no is evidence that you are rewriting the script. His behavior may still shift, he may still try to pull you back, but your anchor is no longer in him, it's in you. This closing moment is an invitation to breathe, to feel your feet on the floor, to remember that you are allowed to stop carrying his story. You are allowed to release the question, what will he do next? And replace it with, what do I need now? You are allowed to stop being a mirror and start being a whole person again. Healing from a narcissist is not a single break, but a series of quiet returns to yourself. It's the slow unfurling of a clenched hand. It's the discovery that your softness is still there and your strength too. It's the quiet knowing that you no longer have to shrink, explain, or rescue to be worthy. Take these words with you as you go. I am not his supply, I am my own source. I am not a mirror. I am a woman with a face, a voice, a life. I do not have to be empty to be loved. Let them settle in your heart. Let them become a rhythm in your breath. Because the story that began with when a narcissist sees you healing ends here. Not with fear of what he will do next, but with the power of what you will do now. This is self-love. This is freedom. This is you coming back home.